Let's go, baby. We're in the podcast.
I'm like, you're actually doing this on purpose, or
Yeah.
I'm like, ah!
Yeah,
Who needs
looking the
Brent
wrong way.
anyway, right?
exactly.
Man, her
Fuck
boobs
that guy,
are
you
just
He's
know?
always in the
much
bathroom
bigger
rubbing
than-
one out
it's
before the
just
show.
disproportionate.
See, I got roasted last time. I tried to get.
I don't give a
Brent
f.
one
Are
of
you
those.
recording?
Yeah.
This is the intro. Let's go. Brent, put it on the counter. F Brent. I'm the star of this show now. We got our special guest
Oh boy, he's
here.
coming.
Okay. Oh, hey, boss. How you doing? How you doing, boss? Can you please put down the store? Yes.
I'm good.
Clank, 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 clank.
Clink, clang. Clink, clink, clang.
One day I'm gonna get you the images so you can put them on there.
Clink,
So,
clank,
as we
and
cling, clang, cling, clang. Is
Gorilla
actually what it is.
Radio.
It's not it. Hello and welcome to Strange Happy Hour. I am one of your hosts, Brent the Jesterhead, Metcalfe along to my left,
The dispatcher, Mark Plover.
and on my right.
Handsome John.
At least he answered correctly. We're here to bring you, as we do
As
each
opposed
and
to win.
every week, the crazy video game and nerdy tech news out there in the industry. And surprisingly enough, there is a lot more going on this week than I could have ever expected. Because it's the end of February. There's very rarely anything going on until at least March. Of course, we have so much to discuss, but we do not have enough time in this very show to talk about everything. We have no time to discuss the fact that there's a new Witcher 3 patch that allows you to transfer your saves from PC to Switch. We also don't have time to talk about the fact that there is a new mobile Final Fantasy Tactics game. They're not calling Final Fantasy Tactics. Come on, Square Enix. We also don't have time to discuss the fact that a 7-year-old took home the championship for the VGC Pokemon Oceanic Region Championship. Really cool, very cute. You should watch the video.
Oh yeah, she was holding that Eevee puppet. Oh,
Adorable. However, we do have time to talk about on this very show, as we do each and every week, what we like to call on this very stage that you see before you with the purple background and the green lights. The important. Look at that. All right, we're getting there. Ooh, man, I just want a little cling clang there. I think we're going to go ahead and start off with Handsome John.
God, why?
Talking
Every time.
about-
You always want to start off with me, and it's like
I got you.
Gorilla Radio.
That's not it at all.
World War Z developer Saber Interactive acquired by TH Nordic parent company, also known as Embracer Group. It's
I realize that.
yeah, I didn't either. I thought THQ
Embracer
Nordic was them who changed their name.
Yeah.
But I think Embracer Group is either the hedge fund or whatever it is.
That's
controlling that.
providing money for
THQ,
them.
yeah.
So,
It's a huge deal.
yeah, it's massive. And the reason being is that this is about a $525 million deal. That is $500 million. Whereas Insomniac was only $250 million.
No,
Little-
it
little
wasn't
bit
even
more.
that. It was 25 million. It was something minuscule.
It was like,
comparatively.
no, it was 200 and change.
Are you sure?
Yes, absolutely.
Actually, the one I'd count the one
I want to say it was like
compared to
225 million. I can't remember to save my life, and I wish it was
I'll
on this.
find it. You keep going.
But anyway, they were also responsible for the Witcher 3 port switchover for Switch.
Okay, yeah.
Which is that's what this company's known for, is for their ports. I think they also
Great.
were the ones
229.
to port Vampire over to Switch as well.
229 million.
229 million.
Yeah,
Yep.
so-
So I wasn't too far off. Which is insane because to me, I would think Insomniac would be worth more than a company that does mostly port games.
Well, I think this is interesting only because of the fact that, one, the Walking Dead game they released is apparently very hot. Very, very, very big. People are a fan of it. Granted, I think it's VR only. So there's that factor. But on top of that, THQ Nordic has once again just continued to like throw money out and be
They
like,
have a paper mill where
yeah,
they just literally print
we're
money.
just going to purchase everything, because if we purchase everything and we release everything, we have to make money at some point.
Well, the messed up part is that people were saying that Insomniac wasn't even worth what they paid, what Sony paid for. And I think you're out of
Nuts.
your mind.
Out of your mind.
Just based on the skill, the proven games that they have built and made. I mean, Ratchet and Clank in general,
I was getting ready to look up the sales numbers.
it's got to be insane, especially because of the ports that they've done after the fact. But I mean, every year they massive sales.
Yeah.
And a proven IP, a great IP. They also did Spider-Man, which was an amazing game. I'm not surprised Sony bought them, but for $225 million, that's all they were worth. I thought it was a little low personally, but then again, I don't really know how money flows within those companies.
There's not a ton, I guess, of money movement necessarily between like game companies buying other game companies, like as often as you might see it in other spaces.
Well, this was a parent company buying a development company.
Yeah.
So but in this instance, it's really like is THQ Nordic looking at it as like, oh, if anybody needs to port anything, we have a reliable person to port, and we'll make money off of that, and it'll just constantly be streaming money. Cool, but at the same time, like, or do they plan on putting out new IPs with it? Don't know, but that's not what this group's really known for. And the other thing that the people are really saying that I kind of agree with is you're not really buying the company, you're buying the people.
Yeah.
That come with the company. So as soon as those people leave, you don't really have that talent anymore.
Yeah.
So these people are going to know that. They're going to know that company was just bought for $500 million. And they're going to be like, you basically bought me. I don't see a pay raise. What's going on?
Well, so at a certain point, too, like the purchase of that goes to the board and the owners and whoever currently owns the company at that time to really make that decision. It doesn't go to the people who work for it. But that does definitely show your value to whoever just purchased the company to say, hey, by the way.
And if I didn't mention this earlier, which I very well might not have, the company was called Saber Interactive. I think I just realized I never said
you
the
never
name
said
of
the
company
actual
that got
name.
bought. Wow. So there you go. You should clip that, put it in the beginning, and here we are again. But the interesting part is that it is also how much they paid. They upfront gave like $150 million, and I guess there's going to be like dividends paid out of $350 million over another period of time.
Just the PS2 Ratchet and Clanks alone broke 12 million total franchise sales.
Yeah.
So 12 million at $50 a game, like they're making money. That doesn't include Resistance Fall of Man, which was sold over 2 million. Doesn't include the Spyro franchise, which sold cumulatively
And also just had a re-release.
11 million. Like, I mean, they make games that sell. So Insomniac games, just for correction.
Over the last, what? Let's
those
let's
are
call it, what, 2-3 decades?
So those are literally just
You're talking
that spans a decade and a half.
decade and a half.
Yeah, that's not even like the back half.
That's 15
You're
years,
talking about $1 to $2 billion.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Like just between Spyro and Ratchet and Clank, the two of those, you're talking $1.2 billion between the two of them in revenue.
And that's not including the fact that the
You're
newest
right.
Ratchet and Clank sold faster than any other game in the franchise. Like, they're going to make money with Insomniac. Freaking Spider-Man
is, 2 alone is going to pay for that.
Yeah.
They're going to make mad amounts of money on
I
that.
got something in my drink.
Are you okay?
There's something in my drink. I don't know what it is.
Eat it.
I don't know if I'm going to eat it, but I am going to drink around it.
It's sterile. I mean, at least.
Sterile, and I like the taste.
Love that movie.
It is interesting because Nordic, I mean, it's their parent company, not Nordic. We keep referencing Nordic, but they're going under that umbrella.
Yeah. Well, they're the ones making the deals for THQ Nordic. It's just Embracer Company.
Yeah.
Embracer Group is just the company.
It
that
is.
owns it whole.
It is just super odd considering the fact that, like you said, I mean, we could probably go through some of the games that Saber Interactive, right? Is that who it is?
Saber Interactive Studios. Yeah.
Has worked on, and it feels like you wouldn't be able to
World
find
War Z.
any. Yeah, which was a bomb from my understanding.
I thought so too, but a lot of people said that it was actually considered a success, and
Okay.
I thought that was a little weird.
Hey.
But he says that they'll. But here's the thing, though. They said that they're going to remain independent as a company. They're going to continue to do what they've been doing and continue the success. And we've heard this before.
Okay,
So we heard this with I think it was Blizzard or Activision when they acquired.
they worked on the Halo anniversary
343
edition.
Industries. They did a lot of the.
They worked on God Mode.
What was it? Not the ports, but the.
They worked on the RIPD game. Oh,
Ooh.
oh. They worked on Master Chief
Everybody's got a
Collection.
cringe or two.
Halo
But
One.
they worked on doing the remakes for Halo 343 Studios. I think.
Shaq Fu.
Oh my God!
World
One of the
War
worst
Z. Ghostbusters the game remastered. Call of Cthulhu. Vampire the Switch version.
Yeah, they
It
did
is
before.
just they've been around for 19 years. They have over 600 employees, according to Wikipedia. So like they're not a small studio. It's
No.
just it is such an odd maneuver. Yeah.
I don't personally understand why they paid so much. When I'm looking at a comparison like Insomniac, which I'm glad whoever did on Twitter made that point, because I'm like, yeah, you're right. This
No
this
taxation
doesn't
did.
make sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Moriarty, gotta love that man. He's giving props to Vanquish, which I'm loving playing
Of
right
course. Yeah.
now. So good.
After he platinum Dragon Quest 11, I was like, I got to do that now. It's on my list. No, it's just a very odd situation. I'm very curious to see what they do with this because, again, this seems like
Yeah.
a very mid-tier developer. To me, it's akin to, I don't know, like, I don't want to knock Bluepoint because I think they do wonderful work, but Bluepoint has literally done nothing but ports. Like, somebody spending $525 million on
Wait,
it.
isn't Bluepoint the one that did PUBG?
No.
No.
That's PUBG games.
Player Unknown is literally the developer of
Yeah.
PUBG. Player Unknown's Battleground.
Blue Point is
Point.
like is the
Never mind.
your
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, there's another thing.
Yeah.
You got it.
It's fine. We're there.
But it'd be like Sony spending $525 million on them. Like I can't imagine that deal would go through because what is the value in this company?
Right.
600
Again,
employees.
the people are the total value of this.
I totally-
They don't own anything to make money off of, really.
But most of the times when a purchase is made, like in order to prove the value, you have a good product. So Insomniac's the same way. Like you're buying those people. Most of the people who work at Insomniac, a large portion of it, especially when you're talking about the higher ups, have worked at Insomniac since the beginning or very early on. They've been there forever. So you want them.
Isn't it a little weird that they bought them for $29 million, but they have all of these franchises under their belt that they can make remakes of, sequels of, and make a lot of money.
Correct. Yeah.
Blows me away.
Not only that,
I
like
think they got a deal.
they could. Sony did for sure because they can now take all of those franchises, and even if Insomniac never works on them again, guess what? We're putting Resistance on whoever. We're putting.
And Resistance is coming
Jumping
back.
Jack Rabbit, which I think is a game they made years ago, on something. We're like, whatever they want, like it can go to any developer. Now, Sony's been better about not doing that. Like we got one Ratchet and Clank this generation compared to PS3, where there was 1, 2, 3, plus the PSP version. Like all those games are fun and I enjoyed them, but they're not scattershotting anymore. It's about quality, not quantity.
Yep.
So keeping that under your belt for whenever you feel like it, that's a good move on their part. But what Saber has is just people. What can they do with those people is the question.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
And it seems like
3 to 5 years from now.
THQ Nordic's got freaking unlimited pockets that they're pulling out of. I saw Coke Group somewhere.
I'm sure.
In a few of these. So or Coke Media Group.
Yeah.
But that still kind of scares me in a lot of ways. I'm like, ugh. I still want to get a hold of that.
Politically conservative games. You're like, Biomutants about how fascism should die. Like, wait. Forget socialists. We're like, what a second.
Well, that game actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, and they had positive feedback from the fact that they actually
Came out and said that
came
we're
out
working
on Twitter,
on it. It's
like,
not dead. Don't worry. It's
Yeah,
coming.
they went out, released a little statement on Twitter. It's like 2 paragraphs long and an image of just, hey, it's still coming. We apologize. It's going to take longer. We know we're missing that date.
It was funny because literally the day beforehand, I saw like,
Where's Biomutant?
Yeah, I don't understand. Didn't ever say that. And all of a sudden it was like, boop. No, we got you.
But they received some major applaud. Like, people are happy. They're take your time, get it done.
Communication is great.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, by the way, this is taking longer. That's cool. Some people can't handle that.
Yep.
Like, there are people freaking out right now about PlayStation 5 not bringing out any specs or talking about it or
man.
anything right now, and they're flipping out.
That's because Microsoft released their specs today, and
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever, it'll be fine.
But in the war of Sony versus Microsoft, somebody was gonna have to go first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like,
actually.
And Sony got what they wanted.
Yeah, what was it? I had seen this meme about like
Kind
a Brexit thing of like if Brexit was never going to end 10 years from now or 20 years from now, it's like we could reconvene every year to have this meeting, but we don't know quite the history of it anymore.
Yeah.
We don't understand why we do it. It would be the same thing if the two of them going, and eventually we have this meeting of like we expect it possibly to happen, but it's never quite going to. We don't understand why we do it anymore.
God.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, let us know what you think about the Saber Interactive purchase. Again,
it's a big deal because it's one of the largest acquisitions that we've seen, and on top of the fact that we don't really see the value in it. But
not
we'll
only
find
that,
out.
we actually have the public information because a lot of times these private agreements are made and it's not public because they're not publicly traded companies. So the fact that we get insight on that financially is
kinda
very
cool.
interesting and important when we're talking about numbers here at this table. So
Yep.
very cool. I'm going to move on to my topic because it's still swaying into the video games. This is actually going to have a nice little flow, and you'll see viewer here shortly.
Ebb and
But I'm
flow.
going to talk about the coronavirus.
The coronavirus. Pop that cap.
And the reason I'm going to talk about it is because it is impacting a lot of conferences. So PAX East is losing Sony and Square Enix. They're pulling out.
It's not just
their
impacting
stuff.
conferences.
I know. I'm going to PAX East this year.
Yeah. You're not going to be able to play Last of Us Part 2 anymore.
Nope.
Not that I thought I was
You
really
would
gonna
have.
play it.
Thought you
Because
were
I
gonna
would
get
have
some
forced
inside
you.
scoop?
Oculus, I think. Well, actually,
Oculus and Facebook are
GDC.
pulling out of GDC, and so is
Yeah,
Sony there.
Kojima.
It has gotten to the point, Kojima as well, thank you. It got to the point where the mayor of Boston is calling out Sony, like, please, for the love of God, come, because you're passing on bad stereotypes,
So-
which,
What?
that's what he said. He's like, you're
I don't remember hearing that one.
proliferating bad stereotypes.
Well, the reason being that there was someone literally had come back from China into Boston and had confirmed they had the disease.
So that's the thing. There's one confirmed case, but that person, like the part of his plea was like that person is at home, they are currently recovering. Like this is not a problem here. Like
yeah, like any potential for the spread is gone now. Out of that point, but I mean, it's anybody who's traveling. It's the airplanes. It's all these airplanes. They cross people. How do you know that they're actually sanitizing correctly? I mean, he even said, "Hey, we updated our sanitizing procedures to make sure that we were able to kill this virus, so that way it's up to the CDC standard."
It did make sense for Boston's mayor to be like, "Hey, please don't."
Yeah, the
because
money.
he wants to make sure not only the money, but like Boston's a safe city. Don't not come here. But from another standpoint, I find it interesting because though
I think it's just a giant excuse.
See,
I think it's all bullshit.
I wonder because PlayStation has already said they're not going to E3. They've already stated early this year their plan is to hit as many different events as possible. Not the first time. So with all of that on the table, like what would they benefit on skipping this
Because they
conference?
don't want to talk. They're not ready to talk about things they don't want to talk about.
But the whole point of it was that you had an experience where you get to play Last of Us 2. That's literally what they were going there for.
No, and
just like Days Gone
maybe
last year.
They're not ready
But
for that.
would
Maybe
it-
they
would it
want them to
have-
concentrate, Naughty Dog to concentrate solely on finishing out the game because it's not gold yet.
would it have
No.
had to been on PS5 though, or
No.
PS5 hardware?
No.
Because I thought Last of Us 2 is going to be one of those
PS4,
PS5 releases.
PS4.
It is not gonna
Well,
be a
there's
PS5 launch.
talk about it being like a cross console release.
I mean,
Where
we'll
you
find
go
out
from-
when that happens, but there's no way I don't see that happening, especially with Cyberpunk 2020 coming
Yeah.
out, or 2022.
2077.
Thank you. Jesus, freaking numbers.
The Cyberpunk
2020.
future is only 2 years away.
But, with them saying, you buy anything on this Xbox, if you buy our game on an Xbox
Yeah.
Series, you'll get the Xbox Series X upgrade free. I don't know if Sony really wants to respond to that,
Well-
but this was also decision made before that.
This
came out.
also could be Cyberpunk trying to protect their own game because they were supposed to be out this May,
Yeah.
and now it's pushed to September, which is where people are going to buy new consoles. So
Yeah, and a
for
lot
their
of people are
own
going to hold
sake,
off. I'm not going to buy this
Correct.
game because I want to get it on the new console. Blah blah blah.
It very well could have just been for their own self-preservation. But
If
what's
they would just make it a standard to make a free upgrade for the first 2 years of the console,
that's a different conversation we
I
will
know.
have.
I know.
What's interesting though is like you're talking about Sony
He's being
specifically,
mean to me.
but we're also talking about Square Enix here, who has nothing really big to announce as far as we know. They might have something, but they're not going to announce it at PAX.
No.
Facebook and Oculus, they literally are in the Bay Area where GDC is.
Yeah.
There's no reason for them to not go.
Again, I think it's just people
Like-
not want they don't want to invest the time, and like a lot of these people, they probably don't want to do these events. They're doing it because their company is telling them to do it. Now they have a reason to say, we don't really feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we can't really. That is true. We don't want anybody of importance getting haphazardly sick or dying, and then screwing up more than what we could have ever gained from this. And so they're saying, you know what, we're just going to pass up on this. We're going to let everything subside, and then we'll move forward.
See, I wonder if Sony's doing it just because of the fact that one, they're a primarily Asian company.
Yeah.
Two, they're going to have people flying out to Asia. Same with Square Enix, right? They're going to have people flying from Japan over there. And if there was to be some sort of recorded case of illness, they don't want to be tied to it.
Yeah.
So for them, it's a PR move of like, listen, we understand that we can make ground with this demo, but it's going to save us a lot in the long run if we just don't get tied to this at all.
Yeah,
I didn't
with
check
someone like
the-
Trump who doesn't know anything about geography, he would probably think that they were actually the center of the epidemic.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, he's not alone in his ignorance. Like, there's plenty
I
of
know.
people who would.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I totally understand where you're coming from because people are dumb.
Yeah,
But at the same time, like, we have smart people too. You're some of them because you're watching this show.
absolutely.
But
But wink, that's not pandering to the
just-
audience at all.
Pandering. The biggest part of like not showcasing The Last of Us 2 on a demo is maybe they just wanted them to focus solely on getting the game done and not wanting
Yeah.
to distract any of their devs from having to make this demo and or refine anything, and maybe they just didn't want to deal with it.
What will be interesting to see is if there's another demo event before the release.
Or there's just another trailer, which is
There
what I
already
think
is
eventually
one.
is
They
yeah,
just
I know
dropped one,
they
yeah.
dropped one, but I meant like
Yeah.
in the time that GDC
Well,
is going on.
that would be my question is like, do we see an actual live event where they're going to showcase this, where they would have taken whatever was worked on or worked it up till then out there, or
Or a state of play thing where they said, "Hey, here's
Yeah.
a state of play, and here's some live gameplay of the game that we're going to show."
the game.
Oh, I know, right? You know what's funny? I sent
Veins.
Mainline it.
I forgot what I sent you, but it was on The game was supposed to be released.
Oh yeah, it was the 21st.
Yeah.
21st of February, where Neil Druckmann's like, I feel like something's missing.
I was like,
Can't put
man,
my
that is
finger on it.
messed up.
And I was like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. I was so brain dead. I totally forgot that was the
I'm
original release
surprised.
date.
Yeah, it was like at that time it was like 100 days until it was released. I was like, ugh.
Oh, God, I love that game so much. But not only is this going to impact the conferences as we're seeing, but I mean, we have hints about this affecting manufacturing.
Oh, yeah.
Which I do think could be one of the reasons why Sony is holding back on talking. Granted, they have their own grand scheme. They're ready to go whenever they're ready to pull the trigger.
They probably don't want to talk about the business idea or face the questions of, like,
Yes.
how's this going to impact the company? Because, well, one, that is also going to affect their share prices. But
And also like, is this going to disrupt the market of parts?
Yeah.
Which
Well,
obviously it
'cause-
is because a lot of them come from China.
because Apple and Samsung are already feeling the effects of this.
Switch is going to as well. They're already running out of Switch Lite models in Japan. The newest one they just announced they're going to have a shortage of because they don't have enough made already. Like it's inevitably going to be affecting, but I think that's also something to bring up, I guess,
Yeah.
in this conversation.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what it looks like. I was actually trying to research whether or not Oculus was supposed to be at PAX East or is still going to be at PAX East, but I don't see any information, so I don't know if
No,
they
I
were
think
supposed to be
Oculus
there in the
pulled out.
first place.
I think it was just GDC.
So that's the thing.
GDC, yeah.
Well, so GDC was the only one they pulled out of. They were
Correct.
not supposed to be at PAX East in the first place.
Correct.
I guess,
Oculus, ever since they were bought by Facebook, I don't think goes to many events. It's because Facebook hasn't really been doing a whole lot with them, as far as I can tell. Like, I mean, they're working on products, right? We got the Oculus Quest and a couple other
GDC
things.
makes sense, one, because it's in their own backyard.
Correct.
Two, you need game developers to work on games for VR
Correct.
and advancements for VR before you can go to PAX East. and
Not
show
only that, like some of their technology, again, like the Quest is super dope, and you want to show that off and talk to people about how it was made and do
Well,
your...
see, that's what I was, I guess, more curious about because,
Yeah.
again, like I'm going to PAX East. I'm flying out on Thursday for it. I'm kind of curious to see what's going to be there. What can I try out? What can I
Yeah.
see? What can I do? That kind of thing. If the Quest was going to be there, that might shift myself to make a pre-order purchase or make a purchase
Absolutely.
for it. So
Why would you
not?
not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's how you make money.
Yeah.
But
I was curious to see why they wouldn't be there. But Last of Us 2 and that kind of thing would have been nice to see at a Sony booth, or if they were going to be on schedule for main stage.
Last of
they
Us
make such
and
cool booths, too.
Iron Man Beyond.
No, I think this was solely around Last of Us 2, because that's what they did for Days Gone as well.
Okay.
It was last year at PAX. It was Days Gone.
swear there was
That's
another
what you
game
would
mentioned.
sign up for it. I'm sure they have like kiosks with like a handful of demo games, but they are not highlighting any other PlayStation exclusive title other than The Last of Us Part 2.
Okay.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the big one anyway that they were going to
The big
showcase.
dog, the naughty dog. Please let us know what you think
Good
about the
thing you don't
coronavirus.
have to drive, my friend. That's number 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, for who?
You.
really?
Please let us know what you think about the coronavirus. Do you think it's going to impact the future launch of consoles? Is it keeping you from going to PAX?
Is Bud Light jealous?
Is Bud Light jealous because they don't have their own virus? Maybe they'll manufacture it, and we'll have the Bud Light virus and the coronavirus. One you'll have in
By
the
the way, we need
summer.
limes.
One you have whenever you're desperate. You have a little bit of cash.
When you could add lime too and
Yeah.
act like it's fancy.
Absolutely. Moving on to let us know in the comments floating above me like an effervescent Bud Light blimp. Final topic of our show. Talk to us, dispatcher, about Google and Huawei. You see how it worked?
Google.
Games to games, China to China. I had it all planned out.
It was all a big facade.
All a big facade.
So, Google had put out an official warning to Huawei device users and new Huawei device users because, as everyone knows, Huawei devices are now illegal to interface, or it's now illegal for Huawei devices to interface with U.S. company services. News. No, so
Talked about it like 10 episodes ago.
due to the executive block, essentially on of Huawei's use of U.S. services or working with U.S. companies and whatnot, Huawei's had to resort to using their own software, their own devices to be able to build out their own app stores and whatnot. But people still want access to Google services because that's still something you can use in China on other devices, just not Huawei devices.
Yeah.
So on Huawei's new phone, apparently some people have been sideloading Google's apps, which is not uncommon.
What port do you use for that?
What?
What port do you...
Shut up. What port do you sideload on?
The one with the big USB, the fat one.
Oh, okay, yeah. The fat port. That's right.
Anywho,
6-year-old girl asked me the name of our podcast. I should know that.
So Google had put out an official warning, I guess, after they identified that a bunch of people were sideloading their apps, and said that you shouldn't do this. We can't guarantee the stability of the apps. We can't guarantee that the apps that you're getting are authentic, because they're not allowed to run on the devices and whatnot.
And you don't know if it's been messed with the securities or anything.
Right. So, like, a lot of the way that people get around this is you can decompile the apps and then modify them so that they go past whatever kind of authenticity checks would need to happen of your device. But the problem is that a lot of people who build out or make those modifications will
Put some extra stuff in.
build some things in that you probably don't want, like some monitoring things,
Some of their own spiders.
some theft, whatever.
Yeah, no big deal.
So Google's trying to warn against a lot of that. Not that, like I said, not that this is an uncommon thing. Usually whenever I would root my devices, I would have to sideload in the Google Play Services apps as an extra service, so basically to add, so that I could sign into my Google things. I could use the Play Store. I could do whatever with it. But
In that fat port.
yeah. But the Huawei users are going to kind of run into a problem here where Google is going to have to block them or do as much as they can to say, don't do this, it's illegal, or we have to stop you from doing this through official fashion. But Google, I think, is going to do this in the same way that they've always done a lot of these things, of like these backport ways of getting access to their stuff, of like, hey,
No.
you shouldn't do that. No, just quick slap on the wrist, like very
Well,
light.
there's not
no
even
big
a
deal.
slap on
Like,
the wrist. It's like, you do what you want. You're not getting the full load. We're doing our fair share of
Right.
we're doing our due diligence where we cannot help you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, whatever you do on your own
Right.
is up to you.
So
and
to
if
me,
they get caught, they get locked up in the Federal Reserve.
That's where you put them.
yeah, exactly. So to me, this has
Still doesn't
been
know what that is.
to me, this has been a lot of Google kind of showing their face of, we really don't agree with this either. Like
Interesting.
we really don't think that this is right, because they made a public statement because I think they had to. Mm-hmm. I think
Yeah.
if they didn't, that the executive branch could come down on them, that Trump could come down on them and say, you guys aren't blocking this to the full extent available. But if they make a public statement ahead of time and get out ahead of it and say, look, we told them, hey, don't do this.
And we all know he'll
What
come
else
down
do
on
you
anything.
want?
Yeah. I don't want him sitting on me, that's for sure. No,
But
yeah.
I think this is them showing kind of their face of like, we don't really agree with this either. So we're gonna give you sort of this lighthearted warning that says, don't do this because it could hurt you. Not don't do this because we really have to shut you down to do this, but don't do this because it could hurt you.
It's like the mall security guard catching
Yeah.
you smoking pot and going, stop, and then walking away.
I'm going to call the police because I know. But if you're not here by the time they get here,
Yeah.
oh well.
See you later. Yeah, it is kind of silly. It's an interesting setup only because of the fact that, like, of all the devices we have, all these smart devices that are completely connected, this is the one subsection that legitimately is not allowed to have Google on it.
Yep.
And that's kind of a weird
It's
thought
a
process to
first.
have of,
It's a first that
In
we've
general.
actually had to have like a subjugation of a well-known application user to not be put on one specific device.
I also think that's
outside
another,
of like an Amazon device or something.
that's another reason why Google's like totally okay with it, because why would they not be? It's just spreading more of their services,
Like-
which gives them more knowledge. Like, yeah, of course, when they catch you, it's going to go, stop it.
Yeah.
But they're
Right.
not going to uninstall it from your
Right.
device.
Or tear down your account and block it
mean,
and lock it up.
there are certain points, like I was talking to John about this earlier, like there's certain points where Google legitimately can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So at the time when the Pixel devices started coming out, and I had a Nexus 6. Well, Pixel XL had access to all these neat features with a Google Assistant built in, the whole like pop up from the bottom bar and all that stuff, and I wanted that. Well, the way to do that was to
I want
spoof
it.
my Nexus 6 as a Pixel XL. Well, Google doesn't know any different.
Yeah.
So, like, there's ways around this stuff, but Google's not going to outright say or build in ways probably in Android to try to figure this out. They're just going to be like, no, don't do
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Like,
at the same time, it actually kind of shows you that it doesn't really matter what device you have. You can make it work with whatever you want just by
right.
fooling it.
If you really want to, but like even if you don't, what do they care?
Yeah.
You know, like what does it hurt them like that you get access to their services
Nothing
even if the federal
monetarily,
government
no.
says no? Like I said, they would probably really like to, like the way around this, and I was talking to John about this, is the way around a lot of this stuff from the executive is to just set up your own set of Google services with your in China with your own Chinese company. You've got one already. Like, why not? And then just set up everything there separated from the U.S. entirely. Don't cross the assets at all. Don't cross the data at all. And there's ways to do that. But
them being a U.S. parent company would still be
Trump
kind of
could still say,
around.
well, you guys, look, that's kind of a cheeky way around this. We're still going to come down on you.
Yeah, because he's not really good at doing anything around doing cheeky things like that.
But the idea is
all I know is I don't think he's really going to do much of anything.
No, but he doesn't until he does, and,
Yeah,
and that's kind of
that's
the
the
concern.
You would
problem.
have to have someone smart enough to figure that out to tell him about it in order for him to want to do something about it. And if it doesn't benefit him in his reelection, he's not going to.
Melania, they're using Google on their phones. Stop them. Yes, dear. And that's it.
I
That's-
did
that's
it.
how it did. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, he did it.
No, it's not Melania. Who's the daughter?
Oh, yeah.
Ivanka.
Ivanka. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I saw a picture of her smiling in front of the Taj Mahal today.
Yeah.
It looked painful.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like a robot trying to smile.
In her eyes, she's like, I'm stuck
Dead
and
inside.
captured. Please let me out.
Yeah.
Wait, which
it's
one?
Seriously.
Ivanka.
It's almost, it's like
So
a hostage scenario.
I think Melania looks more like she's trapped.
Yeah, Brianna has this
Ivanka's just sort of.
She's also exaggerating.
I was like,
she has this theory too.
I mean-
she's
you
maybe
sure? I mean,
next time you shake her hand, let's take a look.
They're Malanka.
They're Malanka. Oh god.
yes, exactly.
But please let us know what you think about the Huawei Google alert.
Do you think it really matters, like, what we're doing to them?
And also, just for your own safety, if you are going to do stuff like unlock your phone and mess with the side loading of these apps, I recommend doing it on a device you don't care about first to learn.
And use the fat port.
And use the fat port. That fat port. I don't know if the mic's picked it up, but we'll figure it out. I know I lied and said that was our last topic, but because we're finishing up just a little bit earlier, I have a bonus topic. And that bonus topic is the Xbox One X specs. Now you are a
wanna
computer
talk about
nerd here.
Yep.
That's
Did
not
you get a
fair.
chance to look at them?
So I saw probably the most important one,
Which is?
the 12 teraflops
12
from
teraflops.
the Navi GPU from AMD.
Literally double that of the Xbox One.
Yep.
Actually,
Xbox One X.
Correct.
So I got to give that props.
It's actually kinda-
so to put that in perspective, the $600 graphics card that I have downstairs in the desktop is so I have an Asus RTX 2080 Super. By comparison, that is 11.15 teraflops,
Whew.
and it was a $500 brand new graphics card.
Interesting.
AMD is coming out with a graphics card that does 12 teraflops and probably still has to fit somewhere within that $400 to $500 budget range or $300 to $500 range that the Xbox is going to have to hit.
Yep.
I'm really curious to see how this goes.
I think you
agree.
found the reason why we haven't heard a price point from either
this
PS5
side.
or
exactly,
Xbox
because
yet.
I feel like they're both going to be afraid to release one.
Because they all are going to have to hit that $600 price point, and they're freaking out because PS3 did it and it didn't work out. Which I think $500 is acceptable for most people. $600 is pushing the bounds, but not unheard of. Especially for what you're getting at it, which is why I think that they're trying to figure out how to formulate the picture that they're trying to give you to tell you what your worth is. And so that way people aren't like, this is a gimmick. It's like, no, this is power. This is what you wanted.
So-
this is the next step.
I guess from a gaming perspective, because like people may not even understand the reference of an RTX 2080 Super there. On my RTX,
Is that a car?
Yes. On my RTX 2080 Super, I can play Battlefield 5 at ultra settings and still push about 120 frames a second.
Man, that's killing.
Right. And I mean, that's with ray tracing enabled and everything else, that kind of thing. So, like all the optimizations that I could possibly get out of it. But you're talking about a very high poly game, high action, high motion, and something that has to calculate light on a very regular basis from explosion of light and other things like that. It's a very complex game, and I can still push great frames out of it.
That's awesome.
So I'm kind of excited to see what happens with this. One,
Because that's
I'm
what
excited,
I want from it.
I'm excited
a
for
graphics
AMD
whore.
on this one because if AMD's Navi GPU is pushing 12 teraflops on a console, what's going to be the next Navi-based GPU that comes out for PC?
Oh, yeah.
Because the 5600 XT, which was the last big card they came out with, wasn't all that impressive. NVIDIA still owns the market.
Yeah.
But if AMD can come out with something that rocks their world, what's NVIDIA going to do in this? You know, like, and AMD's already stepped in and stomped out Intel to some extent on this.
Yeah.
NVIDIA's got to be their next target.
NVIDIA is the one that just came out with the 7 nanometer, right?
No, it's AMD.
That was AMD.
So
yeah, that's what I'm curious to see if that actually those chips are going to be able to push them towards a better.
I don't know what the transistor size on the is on the NVIDIA chips. I'd have to take a look at that, just because that hasn't been a war for graphics cards for the most part.
Yeah.
That like the biggest war is usually the core count.
Okay.
So like CPU cores, because they have to do a lot of heavy single-threaded performance, you'll see 8, 16, 36, whatever cores out, that kind of thing, and that's gotten bigger and bigger. Graphics cards technically have a bunch of really, really tiny
Hyper-threading.
cores, that kind of thing. That's an Intel thing. But
That's an Intel thing?
yeah.
I always hear you guys say some crazy words,
So-
and I'm like trying to still learn. It's fine.
Core thread processing.
Super core rage thread.
Yes, exactly. Now, NVIDIA's core counts are usually up over 1,000. Now, there's a reason for that, and that's because each core does a very, very minuscule amount of processing for light transmission, or what the color is on a particular texture at a particular moment, based on this, that, or the other, that kind of thing. It's very, very small amounts of broad calculation that have to happen at a time, which is where GPUs get much more specialized to do graphics rendering, or at the time, Bitcoin mining and that kind of thing. You know, it's just, I'm curious to see what the Navi GPU really has to offer here.
Yeah.
And where it gets the 12 teraflops from. Is it a high core count, or is it a higher frequency? Because these cores still push,
Yeah.
100 and some megahertz, that kind of thing, as opposed to like a lot of cores doing 100 megahertz, as opposed to doing a few cores pushing a couple gigahertz kind of thing.
Yeah. I
So-
mean,
or I'm sorry, other way around. Low megahertz, that kind of thing, like tens or hundreds megahertz, that kind of thing, as opposed to doing thousands of megahertz.
what's interesting too is that, like, again, 12 teraflops. At the time of release, the Xbox One X was the most powerful console. So they're doubling the teraflops. We hear that a lot in this console generation. I can already tell.
Oh my god!
They're
at the same
doubling it.
But that's like comparative to a high-end computer
Yeah,
right now.
absolutely. On top of that, they're going to have variable rate shading, hardware accelerated DirectX ray tracing, a custom SSD, which they've not talked about, whereas
Yeah.
Sony has talked about theirs. Quick resume multiple games, which, as far as I can tell, means you're going to be able to start a game, stop it, pick up in the next game, and between 2 or 3 of them, just be able to hop right back into them.
That's a storage thing and a memory thing.
Yep.
If they're pushing enough RAM on these systems, which actually I didn't see, was there a RAM
There's
number?
nothing on there about it, yeah.
So if they're talking about a RAM number, that kind of thing, that they're pushing 32 gigabytes, 64 gigabytes of RAM, like a decent PC would have, that kind of stuff's easy to do, of just keep the game loaded in RAM.
Yep.
And literally it's launch, there it is.
There you go.
And that's how quick it is. If it has to come from storage, it's hit the button, wait a second and a half, then there it is.
What's the last thing again?
I'm getting through right now. The dynamic latency input, of course, HDMI 2.0, auto low latency, variable refresh rate, and 120 frames per second support.
Oh no, there was something else that I read that I didn't know what it was. We were talking about it earlier. We know
a variable shader,
yeah.
something like that. Variable shader rate.
Well, no, there was
Yeah,
something
it
else
said
past
variable
that,
rate
too.
shading is one.
That's it.
But the cool thing about the teraflops is, or that
Computational
number,
powers,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
look at it in comparison to other consoles, the original Xbox was 20 gigaflops. And then the Xbox 360 was 260 gigaflops. And then you move on to the Xbox One gen, and you've got Xbox One was 1.1 teraflops. The Xbox One S was only 1.2 teraflops, and then the Xbox One X is 6 teraflops.
Yeah.
And now we're about to do a massive jump, which is in numbers still equivalent from the S to the X, but it's still a massive jump going to
absolutely.
the new Series X.
For a comparison here, you can take one 12 teraflop console of the Xbox One X or Xbox Series X, or you could take 1,276.5 GameCubes duct taped together, which would theoretically have the same teraflops.
Well, I was about to say, he's like, what are you going to
Why
take?
is that a statistic?
What are you gonna
Because
take?
people are dumb on the internet. I love them.
12 Xbox Ones
Yeah.
and stack them, and that is what your Xbox Series X is going to be.
Yeah.
And it's this big.
I mean, they're killing it for sure. I'm very curious to see what Sony has to compete with this on some degree.
The price point gets me when people are getting mad about hearing about a $500 or possibly a $600 price point, because I'm like, this is some big jump. This is not a small deal.
So here's how I see this going, because this is sort of the prediction, I guess, of like understanding how chip manufacturers work when it comes to interface with boards and contracts and that kind of thing. Microsoft has now shown their hand.
Correct.
And probably Sony, because both Sony and Microsoft work with AMD. Mm-hmm. Sony has probably a complete picture now of what AMD's hardware or Xbox's hardware is going to look like from AMD, because they both work with AMD. They both are going to have Navi-based GPUs. So if it's 12 teraflops, Sony's probably looking at the spec sheet that they got from AMD and said, yeah, it's got to be that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They probably know, to a 1, maybe 2 margin of like, yeah, it's either this one or that one, or it's definitely this one kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they're going to have an ultimatum on this. If the board that they've built has any kind of flexibility to it currently, Sony's going to have a decision to make of, we can upgrade but take the price hit. Yeah. And then push 13.5 teraflops or 13 teraflops or 12.5 teraflops.
You run into the PS3 generation where they're going to have to up the price of the console, and that did not work out well.
I don't see the Xbox Series X isn't $600.
I don't either.
But that's the thing. My graphics card alone that pushed that.
$600.
Now, granted, that was from NVIDIA, not AMD. So nobody knows what the AMD Navi GPUs look like this year. Okay. I'm sorry, this past year, I guess, 2019. Okay. But I guess the question that's going to come out is, one, what are the AMD desktop graphics cards going to look like? Because obviously if they're pushing 12 teraflops on something that's going to fit in a console, or a price point for a console, should be pretty good for us from here. Second, Sony's going to have to make a decision now on, do we upgrade to a better chip that probably fits into the same socket setting or the same solder points anyway on the board that we've currently got? Or do we stick with the one we've got that may be the same or lower and advertise the same or lower, or maybe skip out on that advertising, but keep the price point that we currently have?
See, I think they're to go for the lower price point at 10 teraflops.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
Well, so I guess, and even then it may not be 10 teraflops. It could also be 12 teraflops if they decided to go with the same chip. It entirely depends on how Sony looks at this point.
If they're looking at it being completely competitive on a price level, which I know everybody's like, oh, well, they said we're not really competitors. BS. They are competitors. It's a console. It's being released at the same time, and they are. The way that the price point is scaring me is I think it's going to be a lot more than what people are really initially, like what you're saying.
Yeah.
We're looking at the graphics card that you got a year ago is almost equivalent to what everybody is saying their max want for price point is, which could be why they're so freaking scared about what they promised and what they're selling out there, that the price point, in order for them not to take a huge, massive, incredible loss, is going to make people super upset.
It also would make sense for Xbox because they've already said, like, you're not going to have exclusive on the console for at least a year. So if that's the case, then
there's no incentive.
The lower end is Xbox One X. If you want to play our games and you don't have anything, you do an Xbox One X.
Yeah.
If you want to upgrade and you want to be the premium user, you get the Series X.
Yeah.
I think that there's an argument to be made there as to what they're doing, and I don't think it's a bad move at all.
No, but we've also seen where the first iteration of consoles, like in the PS3, where it ends up being kind of a pain in the ass. Like, you had the PS3 doing the backwards compatibility. It was great, but it ended up tearing itself apart, and for being an expensive upgrade, it is not something you really want to sacrifice for.
But the PS3 not only
or take a chance on
made back its place in the market space, but actually overtook Xbox by 360 by a small margin.
Yeah, I mean, they suffered through the entire generation,
but they grew themselves into the PlayStation that successfully created PlayStation 4. So I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with going with the higher price point for this. I feel like there's no other way to do it personally, unless they take a huge loss.
Yeah, and I don't see them doing that.
Yeah, I can't,
not PlayStation at least.
Yeah.
So
I could see Microsoft trying to get the edge on getting everybody in on a premium console, taking a loss there, but making up money with people playing their games and getting their service, and taking away from PlayStation up front, because if you can get the games that people want to play still on their service and with a premium console cheaper than your competitor, it might work out in your benefit.
How you win that war, though, is that you get them to buy games on your console. If you have Game Pass, because that's where you make all your money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They want people coming to Game Pass Pass. They want to get those
But
people to
how
convert.
is Game Pass going to make them more money than like? That's,
How does Game Pass make the money in general?
and
It's
that's-
still beyond me.
And that's where I'm trying to figure out the money here, because if they're not making money on Game Pass, or they're barely making money on Game
So-
Pass, and they're not making money on the console,
They
like,
plan on making money with their exclusives, but the
they're
problem is they're not coming out with an exclusive until after the first year,
Not-
unless Halo Infinite is coming out
all
on launch.
exclusives are coming out on Game Pass day to day. Like
Yeah.
that's a thing. So you don't need to purchase that. You just need Game Pass. So how are like there has to be money made somewhere here. It's where I could get lost in the translation.
Well, and that's
So I'm
where
curious.
I feel like games like Division, where they want to keep pushing out yearly season pass
Yeah.
DLC and Apex Legends and all these. That's where you would get people if you had those on a exclusive level coming into Game Pass, paying for that game that would normally either. People would look at the DLC and like, I'd rather not. But if it was on Game Pass, I would totally keep playing it and pay the Game Pass level. That's where you earn your money. You will get those people on for an extra month or two or even year in order to keep playing this game that their friends are
but
playing.
those are all examples of third party. Like you're giving Ubisoft money, but Microsoft's not. Like they take 30% of that cut. That's not like enough for them to sustain themselves, though.
They have to be doing it somehow.
I
I don't know how else they're doing it.
So, I guess to wrap up some of my research on
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
The
Wow, we
last-
rambled.
the last AMD chip, the last AMD card that got released was the 5700 XT.
Okay.
Navi-based GPU, just like the one that's currently coming out. 7 nanometer architecture. Launched for $400 and was pushing 9.7 teraflops.
$400 and 9.7. So you're
Or 9.8. No, I'm sorry, rounding up. 9.7.
I mean, still, even at 10.
But we'll put it at 10. That's you're talking $400. Let's throw some stupid math that makes no sense, other than the fact that you're buying in bulk, so you get a discount.
Not
like
even-
add,
$350 maybe?
Add an extra 20% onto the price, essentially.
Yeah.
So at $400, you're talking an extra $80. Let's say $480 just for the graphics card
Yeah.
at a new release, that kind of thing.
There's
See,
no way
and-
they're walking out without spending minimum $650.
So here's my thing on this, and I'm curious. And this is like tinfoil hat theory.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Microsoft comes out with the ultimate big brain move of let's release our information first.
Okay.
We know that we're not going to make money off this console offhand, but let's force Sony's hand to make a dumb decision here, because they want to base everything off the console. xCloud can
Still bothering him.
xCloud can kill it. Yeah. xCloud can kill it, and Game Pass can kill it on PC.
It's a seed from my coleslaw that I had earlier.
Came from your own mouth. Look at that.
It was stuck in my teeth.
Oh, so you backwashed in your own drink?
I guess so. I mean, I didn't do it intentionally.
Do you not? I mean,
yeah. Every time I'm like, fuckers. So I like your thought process.
so like I'm curious to see if this isn't just some next level play of like we already know we're not going to make.
Yeah, we're
already
screwed
know-
regardless.
Here's the
So
thing.
why don't we see if we can?
I don't even
Right.
think it's going to be that. I think it's actually reverse psychology of the fact that like we're going to tell them 12, and then we're actually going to do 10. Be like, no, that was actually like not really what it's supposed to.
No,
be.
there's no way. Not
Well,
with
so
this
if
advertising.
they really
push.
wanted to double down on it and the price isn't that terrible, the other way to do it is to double down and say we're going to do 12, but there's an upgrade option to 14
Yeah.
from AMD.
Yeah.
So then we're going to go with the 14 option. We just say we came out with 12. Maybe we do a pre-release console that says, well, here's one option, but this is also an option we just didn't tell you about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then everybody just goes straight for the 14
Which could
teraflops.
be the lower end Lockhart that we were heard about. Like what we're hearing is the top end scale of the Xbox Series X, and then you get the low end scale with the
I
Lockhart
don't-
being at 10 teraflops, but at a much more reasonable price.
I don't think they're going to do another one like that. I truly think that the Xbox One X is their
But
low
10
end
teraflops
console.
is more than enough to get done what you want.
But see, that's the
but-
thing. They could do a pro console just like they did launch for the 360
Yeah.
and say, here's a pro console that also comes out with 14 teraflops instead.
that will inevitably happen for sure.
Well, inevitably, but the question is, does it happen at launch because they decide they're going to pull a bait and switch on PlayStation, or
Because of, and this is all from Mark Cerny and the customization of that solid state drive that they're working on, I think Sony is definitely going to knock down the price in the sense of like they're going to spend more on this custom build for this solid state to get it working the way they want it to, and they'll knock back on the graphics card.
if the solid state drive is the play, it's the wrong play.
You think so?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Solid state drives are not good past the initial loading point of your game anyway. Like, unless you're playing a game like so God of War is the only one that would kind of benefit from this because it's continuous play. That means you can load things instantaneously as
Yeah.
you need them. But the problem is that the way games work is you preload as much as you can into RAM
Correct.
ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then you just tack on, like, you get to a certain point, you get 2/3 of the way through, load the rest.
So, like, the example they showed was Spider-Man, where there's a loading screen
Right.
of 20 seconds compared
But
to
that's the only
5.
benefit. The frame rate doesn't change.
Yeah.
Because the graphics card is still the same. The processor is still the same. Like,
I'm not saying they're going to go, like, down. I think they're going to upgrade their graphics card. I just don't think they're going to do the 12 teraflop play. I think it's going to be 8 to 10.
I think that'll hurt them in the long run.
I think if they keep their console competitive at 450 and Microsoft's at 600, I think they're going to benefit for quite some time. And then they get the play of, hey, we're got the PS5 Pro. It's got 20 teraflops.
But I think the other
elephant trunk on the table.
teraflop.
Yeah.
No, I think the other play though that Microsoft's probably going to have going on there is that's fine. We'll just take the PC market while we're at it.
Yeah.
And if they can come out with a compelling enough game store, cool. If they can come out with games that I can play that are worth it, cool.
I think as an addendum to the PC market, sure.
Yes.
Like them taking on Steam is laughable
Gabe
at best.
Newell's own the market. Praise Lord Gabe.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I think that people are going to be sorely disappointed when they hear the price points for both consoles.
I think they're going to be way more. I would argue that the minimum price will be $500.
Hearing a lot more of what we just got, like initially,
Yeah.
I thought the price point was going to be like $450 to $500. I truly think it's going to be a $600 price point this time.
I think people are going to be upset initially, but we'll be fine with it because technology is just getting more expensive anyways. We pay over $1,000 for cell phones on the regular.
Yeah, it's just. I think it's a little obscene to believe that you don't think that this console that you're paying $60 for a game. It's not worth 10 games.
Well, at a certain point too, the price is going to have to go up.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
What was the PS4 release?
400.
400.
Yeah,
So,
so-
it would make sense with inflation and everything else going up. $500 isn't that unreasonable of a price. $600 still isn't that unreasonable of a price.
I don't think it is either,
Yeah.
to be honest.
But because we're paying $1,000 a year for phones now. So
Yep.
like, what's the point? But
There's an echo.
but what I'm
But you're going to hear a lot of people fighting this, and I hear it every day. I listen to IGN and other
Yeah.
they're like, no, they do this, it's suicide. I'm like, I don't think you understand. There's not a choice. If you're going to take that next step, that's where we're at.
I agree.
But my philosophy on this, or my thought process on this, is I think that Microsoft's going for a bit of a faux play on this.
Okay.
I think that they're going to come out with this. They're going to say 12 teraflops. They're going to stick with that. And either it's going to be we did this with the intention we know we're not going to make money on it because we're going to try to make money in other places.
Yeah.
And let Sony focus on the console era of like, we have to beat them. We have to beat them. We have to beat them.
I agree.
Or it's going to be let's do this and come up with something better to trip them up. One or the other. Either way, I
still
think
think it's gonna
xCloud
go-
is going to be the better play for them on this
I
one.
think that 12 teraflops is going to be the high end, and that's where Sony's going to try to meet them at, is in that same realm. And they're going to say, okay, and here's Lockhart where it's at 10 teraflops, but it's a lot cheaper, and you'll be able to get in on this. And you can go on the high end if you want to with this form or another, and then you can go in with the lower console, which will undercut those looking at the PS5 going, I don't want to spend that much money because it's too high.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right, and I'm getting a way better deal on this.
I think Sony's going to undercut them in price, but it's also going to be undercut in power. I think that it'll definitely be a $600 machine for Xbox or higher, and I don't think there's a Lockhart. I think Xbox One X is their lower end, and they're working with xCloud to make their money.
Yeah. So with that idea, then Sony's either going to have to take a bigger pay hit or take a bigger profit hit to be able to produce a console that competes, or they're just going to have to cut the console back.
Yeah, I think they're going to cut the console back, and they're going to be a variation of Nintendo, where Nintendo makes buku bucks because they have exclusives, they have a less powerful console, and people love them.
And again,
I think that's going to hurt their heritage, though.
I don't think so.
No. I mean,
We'll see.
PS4 won out because it's got better graphics than
No,
the
Xbox
to some
One
extent.
X technically
Xbox
is
One
more
had
powerful.
the better power. And then
the One X.
the Pro came out. It
The-
was similar
The
to
One
the
X,
X.
yes, but the Xbox, the
One
original one,
wasn't that much behind PS4 though. Like,
but it was behind.
Yeah.
barely. No, PlayStation won because Xbox shot themselves in the foot and said, "Connect, TV,
Yeah.
sports."
This is your
Yeah.
media machine.
Please let us know what you think about the new titillating details of the Xbox One X and when you think PlayStation will announce it. Let us know in the cloud of effervescence above us.
The X cloud of effervescence.
There you go.
Blow.
And now it's time for last call.
Last call!
You don't have to go
that was
home,
a
but you
good
can't
one.
stay here. That just felt so good. Of course, we do have our Strange Garage channel, which has some content coming up.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got the whole vlog and all that stuff getting ready for release here. I don't know.
Yeah, whenever the schedule is, you can find it on the channel. Links are in the description, floating above Mark because he's ever so much not paying attention. Of course, we have our Discord where you're more than welcome. Come and join us for nice long conversations. I think the last count I saw, we have 134 members, so be 135 just for us.
3 zigzag.
We do have our weekly reading,
Maybe
which
that's all
ironically
we need.
has a Canadian IGN link. You don't even know why. That's just what it has. And it goes into the truth about working at GameStop. Not only did IGN do this, but also GameBiz.
Games.biz.
GameIndustry.biz.
Yeah, there you go.
Had an article as well talking about how desperate the company is for sales and how they're treating employees and how much they have to push sales. It's very fascinating.
I give them another year.
Yeah. But as people who are interested in video games or just the industry as a whole, you should definitely read it. It is a little bit of a different
Super
article.
sad. It's going to be the end of an era that I don't want to see.
I agree. And then, of course, I have a weekly Humble Bundle. I'm just going to change it to weekly. I have a weekly deal, but it's not a deal.
It's always a humble bundle.
In which it is a digital tabletop games. So they're digital tabletop games. There's some really cool stuff in here that I have always wanted to do. Reigns is very, very fun. It was on the phone. It's now on PC. Armello is a ton of fun. It was actually on PS4 for plus years ago, but worth it. And then, of course, Slay the Spire, which has gotten so much love.
Yep.
And you only need to spend $10 to get 7 games. $10, 7 games on your PC. Why not? You might as well. Right?
Nerds.
And finally, the question of the week. What would you do for a living if you were living 100 years in the past?
I like this question. Where am I at now? In
So it's-
1920,
And 1920.
I would definitely be a banker.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because that's part of me living it before 1929.
I'll let you go ahead. I have to do a tad bit of research for something.
I would love to be a speakeasy owner.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I totally feel you there.
Yeah, like just a little barkeep, just washing my mug constantly,
See,
spitting it.
I feel like
washing again.
being a restaurant owner at this time would also be cool
Yeah.
because like you had the milkshake bars, you have there's just so much going on in that era with the restaurant industry just booming.
Well, it's the time in which we started traveling like commercially, globally, right? It's where like the Titanic and other ships, like you don't have to like travel for safety or religious persecution. Like I want to go visit Europe. Let's hop on a boat and go do it. But that also meant like the culinary scene was growing where the competition in France and England and all that's moving over here to the States, and New York's starting to come up and be this big
And
culinary
this
hot
is
point.
before.
Before
This is right before.
we're 9 years before the
between 1 and 2.
yeah. We're between 1 and 2, and it's before.
Roaring 20s.
I'm
thinking the
yeah.
alcohol.
Oh no, it's during Prohibition.
That's during Prohibition.
That's
okay.
why I'm saying I
God,
would want to
Prohibition.
be.
That's the word. I'm like, wait.
I thought you were talking about the stock market
Speakeasy.
crash.
No,
That's
that's 29.
Yeah.
Hence where speakeasies come from. in the
Correct.
first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. But I
Well,
think
that's why I was
speakeasy.
like, so 1920, not 1920s.
Correct.
Because I couldn't remember when that was.
100 years ago.
Okay.
So that would be me.
So 100%. The other side of me, because first tech is not really a thing at that
Steampunk,
point.
baby.
Sure. Aviation.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Booming.
Oh yeah.
Booming aviation. Because aviation was just introduced to World War I around that time frame. 1907 or 19...
Yeah.
1902.
No, it was 07, right?
Wright
think it's
Brothers,
07.
I think it was
Yeah.
1902.
Would you want to know them? Be like,
The Wright
yo,
brothers?
Yo, what's up?
It would be neat.
Yeah.
Wright brothers.
Here's some information.
Jesus, Siri, calm down.
1903.
so-
Damn.
1903.
You're both wrong.
I was close. No, so like aviation definitely would have been ingrained in me, I guess, in that
Yeah.
in that respect. You know, like if I, or I guess knowing myself now, if I had been like around that time frame, especially when aviation was first booming, that kind of thing, you know, small planes
GWA.
built with sticks
Absolutely.
and you know canvas and all that risky stuff that just sounds really neat to fly with. Why not?
Yeah, being a pilot, you get away with a lot then.
Lindenberg.
Yeah, man.
You hang out
you
with
get
him.
free haircuts.
Maybe you're the one who kidnapped his baby.
What?
The Lindenberg baby got
Didn't they
kidnapped and
flush it?
murdered. No, it was a joke.
Oh.
A really
I
bad
didn't know
joke.
that
but-
time frame.
No, it's like in the 40s.
I was going to say that was the
No,
40s.
his kid was kidnapped, I think, in the 20s. There's the complete and utter segue. There is a new HBO series coming out about Lindenberg and his presidential campaign run that he did in the 40s. I'm sorry, in the 30s, because he was very much an isolationist and believed that we should not involve ourselves in World War II, and started blaming the Jews for the fact that they were being captured in the Holocaust. Yeah, it's
Jeez.
almost like that's somewhat timely in our day and age.
Yeah.
Interesting. But anywho, we don't need to talk about that. It's on HBO. You can go see the trailer yourself. It actually looks really good.
I like your idea of the aviation. I
I
think
agree.
that
So the-
right there would be
The one
good
thing
times.
I was trying to look up specifically is when the first air traffic controller was, which was Archie League in 1929.
Okay.
So it would have been after that. But,
But you could be his apprentice.
same principle.
You work with him. And you guys are partners. There's
It would
two
have been
air
9
traffic
years after
controllers.
what we're talking about.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, you're working up in the league, right? There's a league for
but
aviators.
the Archie
I don't know.
League, yeah.
Did
you're
they
just
have
gonna be-
paved roads in 1920?
No, it's all
I don't think so,
cobblestone.
yeah.
Yeah. It was Lyndon B. Johnson, I think, is the one who started the whole highway thing, and that's
No,
where
that was Eisenhower.
wasn't Eisenhower? You're right,
Eisenhower, yeah.
Yeah. American history. Whew.
A lot of it.
Almost like it
So
flew
banker,
right over our
just
heads.
banker, nothing,
No,
nothing sexy.
I'd change my. I
Okay.
want to be a pilot now.
You want to be okay?
Well, the banker thing would be interesting because I mean, one, it would be really easy,
Yeah.
and two, you got away with a lot until 1929 when they figure out what you did.
That's true.
I don't have to care. I only have to work in 1920. You know what I mean?
I kind of wish we were more into prop comedy because we could play these questions out a little bit more, and you guys could be wearing aviation caps.
I mean, I'm just saying, would
We
you want to
can.
would you want to fly something like that?
Yeah, why not?
Hopefully, he puts
It's
the image up
super
on the
light.
screen.
It's
Hopefully, he'll hit the
And
button
they're
for on
really
screen.
not that hard to fly. It's like right now, single engine Seneca is not that hard to fly.
they're not that
No,
hard.
not for me. Hit on screen so you could show. You literally showed him an image on a video
Oh,
to
well,
the people.
I didn't hear what you said. I figured you had said some curse word.
There you go. Now it's justified.
Hey, I got one.
But please let us know what you would be 100 years in the past. The 1920s, the Roaring 20s. What would you be?
I would be a pilot going to Brent Speakeasy.
Yep.
I'm-
Lots of illegal
I'd
whiskey.
probably actually be flying the plane, making him think he flew the plane because
There you go.
realistically, you don't
I
want
would
him
be
flying.
drunk.
And hopefully,
I would be the one traveling with a contraband
I was
for
gonna say,
everyone else.
hopefully, you guys would be bringing me my
Who do you
booze.
think's bringing up the whiskey?
Until next time, cheers.
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 Well, technically,